I would
What do you
definitely
mean?
support Donald Trump over Kamala.
Okay, why so?
Well, what did Kamala do when she was vice president? First of all, she was head of the uh, taking care uh, of the wall. She was head of that. She did nothing. That's when we had
Um,
all these people come in. All these people who've come in and all these innocent young girls here in Georgia, where I live, and like three or four other places. Like the girl who got at the subway in New York. Um, those were, I know you said not all illegal immigrants were bad, but yes, they come in with, lots of them have come in with records from their other countries and also been let out of prisons from their other countries. Or they just come here and they were bad to begin with and they've murdered, they've taken away so many of our young girls, young women, and probably a lot of other people that I don't even know about.
okay, so there's a few things here. So
Hmm.
she was never granted with the authority of
She
taking
was the
care of.
border czar.
So
That's
she was
what her. I'm
so
sorry.
she
Go ahead.
so she was never actually granted the authority of being the quote unquote border czar. That was actually something just Republicans claimed that she was. She never did that herself. The authority that she was granted at the border was to raise private funds for Central American countries to reduce the likelihood of people coming here because of economic insecurity. Now,
Okay.
talking
Well, why
about the
then?
specific,
Where do you get
hold up,
your information from? Okay. Go ahead.
yeah, PBS, AP News, NPR, PBS, Reuters, like those are the typical mechanisms that I get my information from.
Yeah, and I
But
get
if
my information from other news sources.
Sure. Now, if you want to talk about like people being quote unquote let out of prisons or people with records, undocumented immigrants are multiple times less likely to commit violent crime and property crime in the United States comparative to natural born U.S. citizens. So, although I do agree that people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes should be deported, I think most people who are in the country undocumented don't meet that criteria. And I think that they've come to the country for a better life to work here to benefit themselves, their families, and this country. And I think that they should be given a pathway to citizenship if they have not committed a violent crime or bad crime, because that gives them an incentive to vet themselves. And it will actually reduce the burden on law enforcement so that they can focus more on people who have committed violent crimes and bad crimes rather than people who have
Hmm.
been here for 20 years and have a family and are working in their local communities and bettering them.
I agree, certainly. I agree completely with you. But the ones that have come and have records from the countries that they've come from and did not come here legally should be deported back to their original countries. And then they can come back legally if they want to. They're being offered incentives to go back and then come back legally.
See, the thing is, not many people are actually going to take that up because there's an unspecified amount of time it will take back to get into the country. And also, I feel like that's just a huge waste of resources. Why send them out of the country so that they can just go through the process again rather than providing them a pathway to citizenship, right? Like where they don't have to leave the
Well,
country.
yeah, if they haven't committed crimes in their other countries, then yeah, I think it's fine for them to seek citizenship here. I mean, and I don't think that that's anything that's not being done. That's not who's being picked up. That's not who ICE is going after. ICE is going after the criminals. ICE
So,
is
so
going
they
after
like to
people
say
that have
that.
records.
They like to say that, but actually, most people that they have arrested and deported don't have criminal records outside of the coming to the country undocumented, which is a misdemeanor, which I don't think is a reason to deport someone, right?
But
I
how
understand.
do you know that? Because it seems like ICE would not take, they would not do the resources to pick up people who have not committed crimes.
Based on
They're
immigration
not just going to
statistics.
go and pick up these men who have not committed crimes.
That's what they've been doing. Like, for example, ICE has been going to, a bunch of different businesses without identifying themselves, with masks on, without warrants, and literally deporting people without due process.
Well, they're trying to do it with mask on and stuff because people are have apps out now that can see where they are so that they can go and hurt. I mean,
Do you think police officers should be allowed to
attack
do
the
that?
police officers.
No, no.
Well,
The
the
people
police
attacking
officers
police
are
officers
trying.
have been ICE agents. Like ICE agents have
The-
literally attacked police officers.
what police officers have ICE agents attacked?
Yeah, there was actually recently there was like on video like officers talking about how they were like by ICE agents.
Police officers in what city and state? I mean, I don't know. I guess we're definitely getting the news from different places.
I mean, this is
Because
from themselves. It was in Chicago, at least to my understanding.
well, in Chicago, I saw a whole bunch of riots and I saw a whole bunch of,
Because of them sending in the National Guard. Like if they want to send the National
yeah.
Guard in, like send it into areas in which have red states and governors, right? Because then you have the consent of the governor, and then you're legally and constitutionally allowed to go in there. Trump is specifically trying to send them into Democratic areas with Democratic governors because he's trying to test how far he can go in terms of the authoritarian control that violates the Constitution. Because again, he could send them to all of the red states across the entire United States that have very high crime rates where the governors are literally begging him to do so.
Well, in my opinion, and with the crime that's rampant around this country, it seems like we need something done. We need something seriously done. And I think they're just trying to figure out what to be done. And they're trying their best to, Trump is trying his best to figure it out. He's a businessman. But he does have, I'm not as well versed and I haven't ever done this before, but he's got aides that, assist him and tell him what to do. And this is what they decided would be a good thing to try to help some of these cities not have so much crime, not have so many children be, not having so many drive-bys, not having so many riots. Like in Washington now, people can go to a restaurant without being mugged out on the street or without being carjacked. It's just a little bit
people could do that
trying.
before. I do just want to acknowledge DC had the lowest rate of violent crime in the past 30 years at the very end of Biden's administration. And I've been to DC. It wasn't that you would just get mugged on every street corner in DC. That's obviously a ridiculous assertion there. And if you want to reduce how many children are, how about we address the specific amount of ARs that people have access to, which is the choice specifically for mass in the context of schools, right? How about we address control regulation, or specifically people without background checks can get access to by going through the context of a show loophole in order to be able to get access to them? How about we address this using red flags laws? How about you address this using high capacity magazine restrictions? And then also, if you think crime is rampant and you want to address crime, why vote for a convicted criminal over a prosecutor?
Well, me being a Trump supporter, I don't. Now, tell me exactly what he's convicted of.
34 felonies, falsification of business records in the first
yeah,
degree, which is a Class C felony in the state of New York because of a predicate crime, meaning he was committing this crime in furtherance of another one.
I thought he wasn't actually convicted of those crimes.
He was convicted and sentenced.
What was he sentenced to?
Well, he wasn't sentenced to much, right? Because it is a case that he became president. So, he would have likely gone to prison if he wasn't voted in for president. So, if you want to hold criminals accountable, you probably would disagree with your original vote for Trump.
Well, he's not a violent. He's not a violent criminal. But
he's a violent offender.
I'm not talking about.
He's a violent offender.
You mean you're talking about that thing that happened in that store, Nordstrom or whatever? That's the most ridiculous story I've ever heard.
Goodman. And what was ridiculous about it?
Oh yeah, Bergdorf Goodman. Why would Trump need to go and Bergdorf Goodman and do that? And how would someone get away with that? I mean, just that story was so ridiculous, in my opinion.
So actually, people who worked at that store at that particular time said on that particular floor that there was unlikely for anyone else to be on that floor at that time, and it was likely to be vacant. Right, so that specifically, it is the case that he would specifically get away with that. He specifically has literally not only been accused by E. Jean Carroll, but also 26 other women have accused him of misconduct, including his ex-wife that accused him. So
Which
we can
ex-wife?
Yeah, Donald Trump's ex-wife.
Which ex-wife was that?
I'm pretty sure it was Ivana.
No, Ivana's his. He has a wife named Ivana?
Yeah, Ivana was his ex-wife.
Ex-wife?
Ivanka
Who's passed away
is
now?
his daughter.
Yeah. No, I think it was the other lady who was his wife who accused him of that, maybe.
I'm pretty sure it was Ivana.
But she's passed away now. I wonder when she accused him of that.
So I mean, the point is still true. Do you think all of the 26 different women are lying?
Oh, now we're coming up with 26 women?
No, 26 women have already came out.
Where is that? I see you're reading that from something. Where's 26 women? I mean,
No,
what
I
channel?
wasn't reading that.
What
I
channel
actually,
do I go to find where 26 women have
yeah,
accused him of
all you
that?
have to do is look up 26 women have accused Donald Trump of SA. I
Okay, also he's a multi-billionaire. A lot of those are probably not, true. A lot of those are probably gold diggers, of course. There may be one or two true, but also you have to think about the good. He's never drank, he's never smoked. His brother died from alcoholism,
Wait,
so he has
I'm
never
sorry. I'm
done
sorry.
any.
How is never drinking going to go over the fact that 26 different women have come out and said that Donald Trump is engaged in conduct towards them?
Well, the thing is, you're telling me that, but I don't know that in real facts. So, honey, can you look that up about 26 women accusing Donald Trump? Um, yeah. See, I never heard that. Oh, caller is so naive. Yeah, I guess I should have expected that. I just feel like he is making America great again. He has reduced gas prices. He
He
has
hasn't. Gas prices have gone up since Trump got in office.
not in my city, not in
Uh,
Georgia.
on average, according to the Georgia state, on average, according to the Energy Information Administration, they've indicated that gas prices have gone up since Trump got in office.
Okay, that's another thing I have to look into because that's not what I'm seeing, and that's not what I'm experiencing when I get my own gas in my car. Taxes, he's reduced, given
He's
some
actually
tax
increasing
cuts.
taxes for income earners under $400,000 a year because Kamala Harris would have kept all of the tax cuts from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act for income earners under $400,000 a year, and she would have only increased taxes on income over $400,000 a year, right? And
Well, when
Donald
did she
Trump is
ever
in.
say that? All she ever talked about was yellow buses.
What? No, she talked about that.
Oh,
She talked about that on countless occasions. That's why the Committee for Responsible Federal Budget put that within their analysis of the different campaign plans of Harris versus Trump. And she not only said that she was going to keep all the tax cuts for income earners under 400,000 and only increase taxes on income over 400,000, right? But also she's not imposing the tariff that Donald Trump is, which has a regressive negative impact on lower and middle income individuals. Because when you're lower and middle income, you spend a greater proportion of your income on consumer goods because cost of living makes up a greater percentage of your income. So if there's an increase in the level of the cost of living that you have, that's going to cause an increase in the burden on lower and middle income individuals to a greater extent, and lesser to people who are very rich because they spend a lower proportion of their income on consumer goods.
well, we spend a good bit of our money on. I mean, you say the rich don't spend money on consumer goods?
No, I'm saying they're proportionally less, and for rich, I'm saying over
Oh,
$400,000 a year. It's only on income over 400,000. So if you make 450,000, you would only pay an extra slight percentage higher on the extra 50,000.
well, I mean, his tax cuts are helping us a little bit for sure, and I'm not going to say what we have, but it's a good bit more than that. And we've already talked to our accountant who said it's going to really help us this year. Also, being seniors, he's gotten those senior discount. I mean, senior tax cuts.
He's
I
not
mean,
doing
you've
any
been talking to
senior.
18 and 23-year-olds, and I'm 65.
Yeah, my parents are 65 as well. I mean, there's a few things here. One, if you want your Social Security, if you want your Medicare, we actually have to be able to fund that. Donald Trump's policies have led to the Social Security and Medicare being at risk for reducing benefits by 2032, which is in 7 years. So if you want to be able to maintain those particular benefits that you rely upon, well, then we actually need a funding mechanism for that, which includes not deporting people at mass like what Donald Trump's doing and increasing the level of immigration. When he decreases the level of legal immigration and he particularly is trying to deport people at mass who have not committed a violent crime or bad crime, it limits our ability to increase tax revenues to be able to pay for things like Social Security and Medicare. And if we have an increased share of immigration, we're going to have a greater proportion of our population that is younger to be able to fund the systems for people who are older, who are on these systems for a longer period of time because of increasing life expectancy relating to technological increases. Right. And right
I don't know
now,
what lady just said. There was no senior tax cut. There is a senior tax cut, but also,
from Trump,
what
no, there's
about?
not.
Yeah, there is like 6,000. Yeah,
There's a
there is.
deduction
I mean,
on the Social Security, but that's it.
exactly, exactly.
But
Yeah,
it's
and
that's if you make over $400,000 a year, that's nothing to you. You're not going to get anything from that, right? And here's my point: if you make that much, you're going to be fine either way. But what can you say about the 420,000 children, right, that won't have access to free school lunch and breakfast on average every single month because of the big beautiful bill? The 2.5 million people that will lose access to their food stamps on average every single month because of the big beautiful bill, the over 10 million people that will lose access to their health insurance because of the big beautiful bill, while adding $3.4 trillion to the debt. So yeah, you might get a tax cut, right? A slight tax cut that helps you out slightly, right? But what about all of the children that are going to be hungry to a great extent, to the degree of hundreds of thousands every single month?
See, that's never going to happen in any school. That is not going to happen. There are always going to be free lunches. There are going to be people that are donating and people that are helping. There always has been since 78, since I was in school. There's free lunches for people. There's always going to be
I'm
free
not saying they're
lunches. And
getting
what
rid of it
about all the
entirely.
money
Wait,
spent
hold up. You're
on
misunderstanding me.
Medicare?
You're misunderstanding me. I'm not saying he's going to cut free lunch for everyone. I'm saying for 420,000 children, they're going to lose access to it on average every month. So he's reducing how many children get access to this.
Where is that written?
In the Big Beautiful Bill. And if you want to find it particularly, it's from an analysis from the Congressional Budget Office, which is a bipartisan committee from the federal government. So if you just look up Congressional Budget Office, 420,000 children cut off of free school lunch and breakfast, and then big BBB right after that, it will come up as the first link.
Okay. But there's also the other problem of all the Medicare that's been given to the illegal immigrants that they just found out about.
So,
Billions. Billions.
So
Now,
undocumented
you're gonna laugh
immigrants
at
don't
me.
qualify for Medicare. I'm not gonna laugh at you. It's just undocumented immigrants, they don't qualify
Well,
for Medicare.
they have been getting it. It was so what the news I watch is just complete lie.
I do
They're
think
just
that they're lying.
lying.
They are lying to you here. There's no evidence that they were giving undocumented immigrants Medicare. What I think what you're thinking of is emergency situations, right? They don't check if you're documented or not. They just take care of you, which is a human right, right? And everyone believes in that. Do you think that
Yeah,
doctors
I mean,
should
yeah, you
should
can
ask
go
if they
into the
if
hospital.
if someone doesn't have legal
No, lots of
immigration
times
status?
they will not treat you. My kids,
That's not true.
who at time didn't have insurance, and they
They're
well, no,
mandated
they
to
would,
treat you.
but they get billed. They get billed.
Yes, you get billed.
You
Yes.
get billed, and you have to pay.
Yeah, but think about it this way.
But
Think about-
that's not the same as the Medicare that they were
well, you
giving
understand.
to the undocumented citizens.
No. This is just emergency situation. So all it's saying is that like if an undocumented immigrant is dying, the doctors will not clarify whether or not they're a citizen or not in order to give them care. Regardless, they're just going to give them care. Like for example, if someone's a tourist, they deserve to be taken care of, right?
Well, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, like I
But-
mean, we wouldn't say that they should die. So this is something that both sides agree upon, and I don't think there's any aspect of the bill that they are arguing against in terms of Republicans that would reduce undocumented immigrants' access to that emergency health care. They're trying to say health insurance, which undocumented immigrants cannot get access to federal benefits in that sort of manner because they don't qualify for them. The
But
only
they get social security numbers and driver's license.
no,
How
they
does
don't.
that happen?
No, they don't. That they would have to commit identity theft to do so.
Okay, so then all the undocumented citizens are driving around without license, without driver's license.
So if you're one, if they had to do that, that would be because of the illegal immigration processes that exist. And two, in a bunch of states, they've created the ability for undocumented immigrants to be able to get access to driving and driver's license.
It isn't that what you just said that they weren't able to get a driver's license?
No, they weren't able to
Because
get
that would
access.
require a social security card.
No, it doesn't. They are able in certain states to be able to get that without an SSN.
Huh.
And also,
What
like,
states
if
are
they
they?
drive
I
illegally,
mean,
that's no different than a 16-year-old driving illegally, right? There are plenty
yeah,
of
well, then
Americans that
a
have driven
16-year-old driving
illegally.
illegally would be thrown in jail, just as
Not if they're
anybody
not
driving
caught.
without a driver's
Well, there are a
license
lot
would
of
be.
16-year-olds that have driven without a driver's license where they specifically were not caught and held accountable. And if you found out that I specifically drove before I had the ability to in terms of my permit, well, then you would say that I shouldn't be held accountable or punished, right? That would be ridiculous. So driving illegally is not the worst thing in the world, right? As
Yeah,
long
but
as
when
they're
you get
safely
in,
driving, as long as they're safely driving, of course.
yeah. I mean, a lot of these, a lot of people are saying I'm just reading the things. I'm reading a few of them, but
Wait, actually, here's one point.
I do know that that fellow who was driving the 18 wheeler, well, he was given a license. He could not read English, and thus, uh, two people died. I don't know, a family died. Down
So,
in Florida,
so here's what we
and
should do.
he is being punished for that, and that's a good thing.
So
The people that do those things should be punished.
yeah, if you
But
hit
under
someone, you should
Biden,
be held
I
accountable.
don't think that they would. Do you not know about that situation
If yeah,
that
they
happened in
were.
Florida?
So people are held accountable if they specifically get into a car accident. No one's disputing that. Now, the point that we're making is that for undocumented immigrants that are in the country that, again, have not committed a violent crime or bad crime, they should be given a pathway to citizenship so that they don't have to drive in the country undocumented, so that they can specifically get access to everything that they need, right? And so that they are safer, and so that it is the case that they can, like, if they witness a crime, they have an incentive to speak up. If an undocumented immigrant witnesses a crime that happens to you, they have no incentive to speak up because they will be deported. And you want them in that circumstance to speak up because it is the case that you want the person who did that to you to be held accountable.
Yeah, definitely. If it had happened to any of my children, I would definitely want them to be accountable, or any, not just my children, but like all the children of that has happened to that have been by illegal immigrants that
Wait,
had lots of charges from back in wherever their countries
yeah,
were.
so if someone has done that, I think they should not be allowed in the country. I think that they should be deported in that context. No one's going to disagree
Yeah.
with you that people who have committed violent crimes or people should be deported. In that context,
Well,
people should definitely be deported, right? On the condition that they're going to be put into prison in another country. I mean, we don't want them roaming free in another country, right? Because they can come back to our country and they could do it in a different country. We don't want that. So we want them to be put into prison. So on the condition that they'll be put in a prison in another country, we will
yeah,
specifically then deport them. Otherwise, we'll put them in prison in our country because we don't want them roaming free.
right. And that's why I got down to the thing about why I wouldn't have voted for Kamala, because she was, well, you said not, but everything I read, all the newspapers and everything I saw, and I don't just watch Fox News, I watch other news channels too. Someone just said deport me on there. Um, anyway, it that's why I think it's good that we're kind of controlling all the people that do come in here. Other countries control who goes into their countries, and I do think that's smart of Trump to control who comes into our country. You don't think that we should control who comes into our country?
I do think we should control who comes into our country. Again, I have no issue with that. Again, if people have committed a violent crime or bad crime, they should be deported. But what I'm saying is that if someone hasn't committed a violent crime or bad crime, we should give them a pathway to citizenship where they can stay in the country, because we're using up a lot of resources to deport people, to send them back, and to allow them to go back into the process, right? If we just give them a pathway to citizenship where they don't have to leave, well, then it wouldn't be as costly to go through that process. Secondly, right,
Yeah.
for people who are in the country who have not committed a violent crime or bad crime, if our legal processes were quicker, they wouldn't have been restricted from coming to the country in the very first place, and they would have gone through said legal processes. But because our legal processes take too long, that's why they have come into our country undocumented.
Which took place during the Biden administration.
Under both administrations, it's been too long to come into our country. Now, under the Biden administration, if you're going to talk about the immigration surge that happened under the Biden-Harris administration, we do have to acknowledge that was because of economic insecurity that existed around the entire world, because of the pandemic, and because of the effect that it had on supply chain issues and on inflation. Right. And then also we have to acknowledge that that was still a good thing. Like, that level of immigration actually was beneficial to us. Not only specifically was it beneficial economically speaking, but we can see it was so beneficial that the Congressional Budget Office released an estimate that it would increase our GDP size by $8.9 trillion by 2034. Right. $8.9 trillion just in terms of the immigration surge that happened under Biden's term.